All right. I think we're good. I think everything's up and running. Morning, everybody. What is today? Today is July something. I don't know. July 9th. And let me make sure I got audio. I do have audio. Okay, July 9th. Very special episode today. This is episode 50. So while there's nothing special going on the stream today, it is episode 50. It's kind of a big number. And yeah, I've done this 50 times. That seems like a lot, especially when you consider that, that's 3 days a week and it's like 2 to 2.5 hours for every episode. So that means I've logged a lot of time on here. It's what is that? It's like, over 100 hours, of live stream time. And that's pretty cool. So anyway, if you're here and you're watching or you're watching later, I appreciate you jumping in. And let me get set up here because I like to get my windows all tuned up. Now, last Wednesday was a very cool day because I actually had a group from Twitch raid my stream, which is something they don't do on Facebook and YouTube. So if you're not familiar with the way Twitch works, Twitch is a very community-based kind of thing where people go in and they have certain channels that they love to watch. And the person who owns that particular channel can say, hey, we're going to go raid another channel, which means they take all their viewers that are on at that point in time and they take them to another channel that they think might be interesting or fun to go watch. And so I got raided by a channel the other day and it was really cool. And so a lot of interaction with folks who may not be woodworkers, but may be interested in woodworking. So that's kind of fun. And anyway, I just want to make sure that I have, the only thing that was really terrible about the situation was that I was sitting here at my workbench, just working away and kind of just yammering to myself as I tend to do. And I did not notice their chat. And I felt really bad that I did not see their chat comments and such. So I'm going to try to pay attention to the chat comments today, much better than I was in the past. There we go. I've already got Wobble Penguin is on. And so if you're not on Twitch, you're not seeing comments coming from there. I'm sorry I don't have a unified chat window for all three platforms, but good morning. Thanks for coming in, or afternoon. I think some of the folks who were watching who were rated on Wednesday were UK based. So they were watching in the afternoon, not in the morning. So if you're in the States, it's still morning time, but in other parts of the world, not so much. All right. So like I said, today is the 50th anniversary, 50th episode. And to celebrate, we're going to make rabbets. We're going to make rabbet cuts in all of these bases. And if you're not familiar with what a rabbet is, or depending on where you are in the world, some say rebate. Rabbet, it's spelled R-A-B-B-E-T. So I say rabbet. But basically what a rabbet is a groove that is cut into an edge. That's what we use to make the joinery on these. I just cut a very large rabbet in the sides here. But to do this, I use a special bit called a rabbeting bit. And it looks like this. So it basically has a little wheel at the top here, which is a guide bearing. And that guide bearing, I got a little piece of wood, I'll show you. So the guide bearing follows along. This sits in the table. If you're doing it in a hand router, it would be mounted this way, but it sits in my router table, so it's mounted this way. That guide bearing runs along the wood like this. And as you raise this up, it starts to cut a groove in here. Now this has a 1/4 inch head right here. So it's a cutting head. It's got two cutters on a cutter on each side. And these are 1/4 inch away from this guide bearing. So that when I plunge this in like this and run it across, it will create a 1/4 inch deep groove, no matter how, it depends on how deep it is, depending on how much I raise this up, right? But usually I take it about 1/4 inch. So it's a 1/4 inch deep this way and a 1/4 inch high this way. And that's what we're going to do today on all these bases, because that's how I had put the bottom into the base. I use plywood for the bottoms of these things, and they hold up really well. The plywood, it's not structural. It's just something to keep stuff from falling onto the tabletop. Because these are made for old sewing machines, you get dust and string and lint and sometimes sewing machine oil and stuff going down through the bottom, and you don't want that going down and hitting your tabletop surface. So I just put a simple bottom in the bottom of these things. Plywood is the easiest thing to use because nobody sees it, because when it's sitting there and it's got a machine sitting in it, you don't see the bottom. So plywood is simple, economical. Trying to make it out of anything else would really not work. I mean, there are other flat materials that you could use, like hardboard or MDF or something, but I don't like those as much. At least the plywood has a nice look to it. It has wood grain, I mean, because it is wood. And so it kind of matches the aesthetic a little bit. I have one, hang on a second. I'm currently spraying a base. Well, I'm in the process of spraying a base. So let me walk in front of you for a minute and I'll grab this thing and bring it over so I can show you what I'm talking about. So this is a base that is actually in the process of being lacquered, and it's already been oil finished. I use a tung oil finish on this, but you can see the bottom right here. Let me turn this camera on here. So you can see in the bottom, there's a piece of plywood, and there's from the bottom view. This thing just sets, so that groove that we make with the rabbeting bit goes all the way around the interior of the bottom of the box. And then what I do is just measure how wide that is and how long that is, cut a piece of plywood. I have to round the corners of the plywood, but that's really a super simple thing to do. And then it fits nicely in here. I just glue this whole thing in, put some clamps on here for a couple of hours, and then that base is nice and secure in the bottom. And because it's not load bearing, just gluing it into that rabbet is just fine. Some people will actually cut a groove and then slide this into the groove. That's kind of a pain in the butt for me. I don't really like doing it that way. I just like this simple method because, like I said, it's not like the sewing machine sits on this base and puts 15 pounds of pressure on here when it's sitting in there. The sewing machine actually sits on these corners, these corner pins right here. And so those are what hold the bulk of the weight. There's no weight on here. So I've never had one of these come out. I've made hundreds of these bases and they all are pretty effective. So it's a really easy way of doing it. And like I said, I set this up on my router table, so it's a really simple process. And yeah, it doesn't take too long. So let me go put this back on the spray stand over here, which is, I say that, it's a box over in the corner of my garage. But it's where I spray these bases. Actually, this one is getting ready for, it's almost done. I need to give it a little light sanding. Usually when I'm spraying those things, I spray lacquer on them. It's just rattle can, regular old rattle can lacquer. Because they're small, I have a large sprayer that I can use for larger projects, but for the small things like the bases, I like the rattle can stuff. And it's pretty easy to use. And I spray 4 coats and then I'll sand it with like 400 grit paper, just really lightly sand it just to remove any dust nibs and things like that. Hit it one more time and then it's silky smooth. And then I turn it over and do the same thing on the bottom. I'll spray 4 coats, sand it once, and so that's that. But I do that over in the corner. I've got fans blowing it out and whatnot. But that's later in the process. Right now, we need to put this bit right here into that table over there. So let me see. Yep, I've got a view set up for y'all. I'm going to put this over with the Jenga stack here because I've got a stack of them over there. Put my laptop over here so I can make sure, see any comments coming in. And the way I do this, this is my wing of my table saw. So if you saw the whole thing, the table saw is actually on that section over there. And then it has an extension wing, which is one of the reasons why I bought this particular table saw. And then I made this to go into the extension wing, which is basically my router table. So this whole section right here was something that I made. This plate right here was made by Craig, K-R-E-G, Craig, and it was made specifically for my particular router, which is a Triton. It's got a 2.5 horse or 3 horse router. But the cool thing about their router is that you can use it as it's a plunge router, but you can take this spring thing out of it, and then it's made to be able to mount upside down and use as a router table router. So that was kind of one of the things that attracted me to this particular router. It is unplugged at the moment because I do not like to change bits and such while it is plugged in. Even though turning this on, I don't have a quick switch on the side. I have to go all the way underneath and reach under and turn it on. But you know what? I just feel safer having it unplugged. So this bar right here just goes down and slides over a little pin on the router, and that allows me to raise and lower the router bit from the tabletop, which is really nice. So that's a super nice way to do this. And when you have this raised all the way up, it does this nice thing where it locks the collet. And the collet is this little piece that accepts the bits. And once it's locked, I can just go in with my wrench and just loosen it. There we go. And then take the roundover bit out, and we will put in the rabbeting bit. Now I have another rabbeting bit, depending on, I have one that has multiple bearings, and the bearings are different sizes. So I can make a rabbet that's 5/8 inch deep or 1/2 inch deep or you know, 1/8 of an inch deep. I can make different ones using that rabbeting bit, but I like this particular 1/4 inch one because the radius of it is really nice in the corners of the boxes. So that's why I like this particular one. And let's go ahead and tighten this up. Put the wrench in here, give it a little crank there, and then that's really tight. And then what I will do, I think I can use a smaller cover for this one. I think this one fits. Yep. So I'll use the smaller one. It originally came, the plate came with 3 of these, but there's basically 8 that you can get in a set. And so I bought the set, and they go anywhere from a blank one, so you can just have it covering this thing and have a tabletop, to all the way up to a really super large 2 5/8. And I like to size it so that it is as close to the blade dimension as possible, without actually obviously hitting the blade, because that would be bad. So let me go ahead and lower this down. And lock it in. It's just got a little handy lock thing. So now what I need to do is figure out how deep this needs to be. And to do that, I need a piece of plywood. So this is a cutoff from the piece of plywood that I use. You can see it's really thin. And what I normally will do is make sure that the top of this blade is going to be deeper or set higher than this, because I don't want this setting right flat on the ground. I want this to actually be lifted up inside that groove. So I'm going to do like this, get it a little bit higher there. And then I'm going to get my gauge here. I'm going to find out exactly how deep that is. Okay, so we're just a hair over 1/4 inch in the depth, which is just fine. The only ones I have that, you know, that might be an issue are these. They're a little short, but that's fine. These aren't as thick. This one is almost 3 inches right here. This one's not quite, but that depth is not the issue. My big issue is, you know, making sure I don't hit this edge right here where the handle is. But at 1/4 inch, that leaves me a little less than 1/8 of an inch between this handle and where that rabbet will go. And that's That's all planned out. When I cut these to a certain depth so that I know I have enough meat on the bone, so to speak, to provide some rigidity between where the bottom of the base will go and that handle. Because if you get this too thin, it gets really structurally unsound, and you could actually knock it and break it and tear it and stuff. So you need enough meat in between on that wood to satisfy that and keep it sturdy. All right, so the other thing I like to do, and the reason I used my little guide here, is I want to find out what the depth is here that I have this set to. And then I'm going to set my, hang on a second. I'm going to set my marking gauge to the same depth. So this is a marking gauge, and I made this from a kit. It's a really cool kit. What is it? Taylor Toolworks sells these little kits that have the bar and the brass nut here, and then the cutter right here. So really, really nice. And then I made the wood block that it goes on. But the nice thing is that I can take this and set it up for this depth. And then I can score the edge of the base. If I can get this set up right. Hang on a second. So what I do is I set this cutter depth on here to the exact depth that this will cut. And then I can pre-score my wood so that it basically cuts the fibers along the line where that router bit's going to travel. And by doing that, I get a nice clean cut. So even if it starts to want to chip out, if it's going against the grain or whatever, because I've pre-scored that line, I'll still get a nice clean line where that bottom's going to fit in. And by scoring it, all I mean is I take this and I stick it in and just run it across. Just like that. It creates a little line in here that's basically cutting these fibers right there. And those cuts are going to match right up with my cutting blade. Now, I've got all these clamps here. I'm going to get these out of the way. I'm going to just put them on this side of the table for the moment. And that has nothing to do with what I'm going to be doing. It just gives me some more room on that side of the table. The nice thing is, you know, I have a lot of clamps. The bad thing is that when you have a lot of clamps, you have to have places to put them. So they can kind of get in the way at times. In fact, I'm going to take these off. And just store them over here for the moment. Flat surfaces are not a good thing sometimes because you just tend to lay stuff on them all the time. Anyway, I'm going to score this one up here and get this all cut, scored. Okay. Now, am I cutting the right side here? I'm not. See, this is why you have to be careful, because you don't want to be stupid. You don't want to score the wrong side of the base, like me being stupid. Score the bottom of the base. That's going to get cut, which I just didn't do. So now I have a nice line on the inside. Not really a big deal because it's on the inside, but still not my most perfect hour there. All right. But that is a very important thing. Make sure you're cutting your groove in the correct side of the base. All right, so now this has a line going all the way around the inside. That line matches up with the top of my cutter head. I can now plug this in to my router. And then I'm going to bring my dust collection over. It doesn't do a lot because it just kind of spits stuff out, but it will catch some of the stuff. This is kind of a messy process, but I'm just going to put this in here and run this so that some of the dust that shoots off will actually go towards that. And yeah, put on some ears because, you know, hearing is important. Make sure I've got the bottom of the base down because you don't want to groove in the top because then you've basically made firewood. And get my remote and let's cut one here. I'm going to do this in a couple of passes. I don't do the entire thing at once. I make a light pass. I just don't like removing that much wood at one time. I find I get less chip out if I do it like a shallow pass and then do the full depth of that rabbeting bit. But anyway, let's cut one. I'll show you what I mean. Okay, I won't stop every time. I'm just doing this so I can show you the first cut. And it's not full depth, so you can see it's kind of crooked and, you know, it's not plunging to its complete depth inside here. But I just want to get that line started. And then I can go back and get a much cleaner line. But you can see it makes a bunch of dust. So let me get rid of all this. All right, that is the whole process for cutting that little shelf, if you will, where the bottoms, the plywood bottoms will sit. There's a little bit of fuzz. I'm just knocking the fuzz off, but let me give you a different view here. So you can see now that there is a really nice shelf, a rabbet that fits right through here. And the other thing is, like I was talking about, leaving space in between the handle and the rabbet. So you can see that there's a nice little piece of wood right here that's good thickness, good sturdiness, and it's not going to flake and break and do anything like that. But there's a nice ledge now all the way around, and you can see what I mean about the radius, how it cuts this radius in the corners. And two schools of thought, you can either leave the radius, which is what I do, or you can come in with a chisel and square that out. But I just find it easier to leave that radius in and then round the corners of my plywood. And this base did not get, I didn't knock the end off of these bases, right, this particular one. So I'll have to come back and do that, but that's okay. Right now we're rabbeting. So I'm going to take this and put it over here. This one's done. I'm just going to grab another one and we'll just keep on rolling. Now I will just keep doing the same process too. I'm just going to use my gauge here, make sure I've got the bottom of the base. This, cut this. But hopefully you saw how clean that cut was at the top of it. And that's a lot of it has to do with using this marking gauge to just cut those fibers. And it just gives a nice clean line for that rabbeting bit to follow and prevents chip out. You're not always going to get rid of the chip out, but if you've got that good clean line, it keeps that chip out to a minimum. All right, let's do the sapele one here. Or no, this is sycamore, I'm sorry. Okay, and this one really clean. This one's a little bit more prone to chipping out. And basically what happens is that blade is spinning and it just catches some of that wood fiber and just pulls bigger pieces out. But like I said, I find that if I pre-cut that edge, I don't lose any wood up top here. But here's what I'm talking about. If you can see, let me show you. here is a couple of pieces that came off of that you can see. Those are pretty big chip outs that came from that. You know, it's not all fine dust. These are big pieces that got ripped out as I was going, but very clean right here at the top because those fibers were already cut. And so it tends to clean itself up, and I can lose some big pieces like this and not ruin the piece. And that's why I take the time to use that. I didn't always use the marking knife, but once I started doing it, it just started making such a huge difference in reducing that chip out. This is cherry, and cherry is notorious for chip out. For some reason, the cherry always gives me some issues. So cherry is the reason I started doing this particular process to the wood. And since I did, I've reduced that amount of tear out quite a bit. Okay. Okay, here we go. Let's get this one done. So this one turned out pretty good. There's always a little fuzz, and that's okay. But it's nice and sharp and clean, good, nice edges all the way around, and that's what I'm after. Just keep knocking them out here. Make sure you get the bottom of these. Yeah, so the cool thing about this marking gauge, like I said, is that I made it myself from a kit. If you bought something like this in the store, it would probably run you, I don't know, about $30 or so. What's that, about 15 pounds, 17 pounds, something like that in the UK. But it was like $10 for the kit. And then I supplied the wood and the skill to create the little block. Just not a lot of skill, but such a great tool. So for a third the price and some scrap wood, I've got a really nice tool. Hang on a second. I've got a little bit of glue up here that's driving me crazy. Just gonna tear that off a little bit. There we go. You know, sometimes you just have to take care of the thing that's bugging you the most. All right, on we go. So this one, don't really have a great camera view for you guys to watch, do I? This one lost this big piece on the inside. I mean, that's a sizable piece of wood right there. But right here, let me see, I believe right here is the score line that I made, and it snapped it and tore that wood out, but it tore it cleanly right at that score line. So the bottom of my base is perfectly clean now. There's no tear out or anything. The big fear is that if you get a piece that tears like that, that it might tear up into the wood up in this area, where you obviously don't want wood tearing up on here, because this is your nice finished surface, right? So, yep, pays dividends. Okay, now the question is, where is the middle piece of wood for this? Oh my goodness. It's not that one. It should be a block of, oh, it's right here. Right here. Just trying to keep all my pieces together here for these. So I just had to find this middle piece right here, because you want to keep everything together. Here's another one that's possibly prone to chipping, is this oak. So same process, make sure I get the bottom of the base. I'm super paranoid now, but all I have to do is look for the handle and know that's the bottom. So Doesn't hurt to look twice though. I like measuring, you know. It's free, it doesn't cost you anything to do it twice. All right, these will go pretty quick. Okay, the red oak was pretty good. Behaved itself. A lot more little fibers and stuff around the edge, but that's okay. They clean right up. That's just like 220 grit sandpaper. It just kind of cleans off those edges. But that's a really nice rabbet cut in there. Grab another one. Keep the train moving. I am going to do one thing real quick though, because this stuff tends to be a little bit more on the dusty side. I'm going to go ahead and put a dust mask on real quick. It's just a cheapy dust mask, but just to kind of keep some of that stuff out of my nose. Couldn't hurt, right? I could do this with a handheld router, but I got to tell you, so much easier with a router table. Excuse me. So much easier with a router table. Because, you know, you just guide your work surface around the bit instead of having to keep that bit standing straight up with a router in your hand. Very challenging that way. I've done it, but it's challenging. So router table, it just sits flat on the table and you just move the word around. It's also really safe and really stable that way too. All right, what do we got here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 2 more to go. So we are cranking right through these. And wow, not even noon. So we're making good progress here. So I'm going to go ahead and get onto this other sycamore. The sycamore was also really dusty as well. Just some of these make really fine wood chips when they come out, and some of them are much heavier. But so those fine ones, they get thrown up in the air and I have to breathe. The only reason I don't like wearing the mask is that it can fog up my glasses, which, you know, okay, what are you going to pick, seeing or breathing? I can always hold my breath, but it's hard for me to close my eyes and do this. So choices. All right, let's clean off the fuzz off of this one, and then we've got one more to go. And all in all, really fast, efficient. That worked out well. Okay, grab this last one right here. And I need to move this up a little bit. One more walnut, and then we are done with all of the base bottom rabbeting. Not sure why I thought it would take longer, but honestly, you know, once you get things set up, you're just doing the same thing over and over again. So, which is why I like to make, that's why I'm not making one of these, I'm making 8 of them, because it's just easier to make repetitive cuts or repetitive routes. And it's just as easy to make 8 boxes or bases as it is to make 1. So if I'm going to make 1, why not make 8? Because that's 8 times more money in my pocket, right? Oh, there we go. Take off the mask, take off the ears, and so much better. All right. And just clean this one up a little bit. But yeah, that's all there is to making these this little lip, this little ledge. It's just a rabbet bit, which I don't know, 20 bucks maybe at your local hardware, Home Depot, Lowe's, Amazon, wherever. Just you can look them up if you're an Amazon shopper. They're really easy to find. And super clean edge. Really, all we're ready for now is to get some plywood cut, and that plywood is going to fit really nicely in there. I've got a nice little lip right here for this thing to sit inside, and it's deep enough that the plywood will not be coming in contact with the table surface, just the edge of the base will, which is what I wanted. So, yay. All right. Wait, yep, I got them all done. So what I'm going to do right now, before I move on, is I'm just going to lower this bit down into the table, because if I leave it up, and I set stuff on here all the time, and I don't want it scratching something inadvertently. So I'm just going to take that off. I'm going to take off this cover, and I'm going to put the flat cover on, and that just gives me a nice tabletop surface to work on. So just do like this, and just kind of lock that one in. There we go. Now I've got a nice flat table surface, and I can stack all these bases over here and get ready for the next step, which is cutting plywood. I wasn't really set up for this step, so yeah, we're gonna have to work through this. So let me go ahead and stack up these bases over here for the moment. And then we will figure out what we need in terms of plywood. Now, I will tell you that I did not go and buy plywood yesterday. I probably should have. I just wasn't really prepared to be this far into it, which I'm not sure why not. I should have known better, but anyway, let me come here and sit down for just a minute. Clean out my dust out of my computer here. And hang on a second, I gotta do this. Sorry, I had dust in my hinge and it was driving me crazy. And I don't know, I don't think that's probably great for my MacBook. So anyway, let me go ahead and put this gauge away. The nice thing about this gauge is that you know, you can set this to whatever depth you need for marking, but when you're done, the cutter head, there's actually a bevel cut into the top here. Let me show you. So there's a bevel cut in the top so that that blade, when you pull it all the way back and you retract it, is underneath the surface so you can't damage the blade. You just tighten it up and now you can just set it down, face down, and you're good to go. So that's why I like that so much. All right, I'm gonna have to cut some plywood. And in order to do that, I need to figure out how wide my plywood boards are gonna need to be. And to do that, we're just gonna grab the old tape measure and measure. So we're gonna measure the inside of this rabbet cut that we just made. And that should give us an indication as to how wide our piece of plywood needs to be. So I'm really just a hair over on this particular one, 7 1/8. Like this piece of scrap is a little wide. This is, yeah, 7 1/2. So it won't fit down inside there. So I would need pieces that are, at least for these, the shorties, probably 12 5/8 by 7 1/8. Is that what I'm looking at? A little over 7 1/8. And the thing about my son going to work, maybe? It's noon. Shouldn't he be on his way to work? Yep, he's late. Bye. Oh, doesn't matter how old they get, they're still kids. Yep, he just locked the door. Anyway, what I was saying, oh, so I can't necessarily just cut a whole bunch of strips that are the same width because these things can vary a little bit and you don't want too much gap. Like this one is 3/16. The other one was just a hair over 1/8. So that's what I'm saying. I can't just cut 7 1/8 because then I'd have a little bit too much of a gap in here. So I kind of, you know, go through and measure and cut them as needed. Now I know approximately the width, and that's what I'm looking for right now because I'm going to ballpark these. I need to go look over here. Hang on a second. I'm going to grab a piece of plywood. I do have some. I'm not like completely without, so I can get some of these done. How many do I have? Well, I might be able to get all of them done. The nice thing about these bases is that they are pretty thin. They're smaller than the full-size ones that I make. And so that gives me maybe a little bit more utilization out of my wood. So let's go to this camera right here, and I'm going to realign you here. Hang on a second. Let me give you a new angle here because I'm going to be over at the table saw. And just so you can see what's going on, we're going to be right here. There's my plywood, and there's my fan blowing. There we go. So that's a little bit better view for you. I'm going to be right here. And let's get the tape measure. And let me go grab my pencil and make some marks on here and see what we can do in terms of squeezing out some base bottoms out of this and try to use as much of this plywood as I can. Now this, excuse me, is 1/4-inch birch ply. I buy this in 2 foot by 4 foot sheets. Actually, they don't carry the 1/4-inch, at least in my local place, they don't carry the 1/4-inch in huge sheets. Usually it's the thicker stuff they do. I prefer it in these smaller sheets anyway, just because it gives me a little bit more ease of cutting, a little bit more ease of handling. Cutting big sheets of full sheets of 4 foot by 8 foot ply is not my favorite thing. This is a little over 16 inches wide, so I'm going to have leftovers here, right? Because at very minimum I need 7 1/8. At the most I probably need, we'll just call it 7 1/4. So it's 7 1/4 plus 1/8 of an inch for a kerf mark. And if I do another 7 1/4 here, mark that one. Just like I said, just rough estimate, that's 14 5/8 of material. So that's no problem. I can get 2 lanes, if you will, 2 runs of bottoms. Now, the big question was, how long are these short ones? I might be able to get all 3 of them out of one, which would be awesome. So that's 12. We're just going to call it 12 3/4. Right? So if I look at this one at 12 3/4 right here, and then I'm going to make a little mark 1/8 of an inch because I've got a kerf for my saw blade. So I will come in and measure another 12 3/4. 12 3/4 plus another 1/8, and easily another 12 3/4 here. So I can definitely get 3 of these skinny bases, the small base, I won't call them skinny, 3 of the smaller bases that don't have the storage compartment. I can easily get 3 of those. The question is, how many of the longer ones can I get out of a run? So let's see. And I've got 1, 2, 3, I've got 4 of the small bases to make bottoms for. But this one needs to be, I know we just measured this a second ago, but you know, I'm old and don't remember stuff. 17 3/8, give or take. Let me just check another one just to kind of see where my boundaries are here. It's almost 17 1/2. So I'm going to say 17 1/2 just to be safe. So if I come down here and measure 17 1/2 on this one, I think I'm only going to get 2 out of here, but 17 1/2. And then I'm going to make an 1/8 of an inch mark. We're going to come down here and do another 17 1/2. And I'm just rough at, yeah, I'm only going to get 2 passes out of here. So I get 2 out of here. Now, here's an interesting question. I have 4 small ones, 1, 2, 3, 4, without the storage. If I do 2 of those, can I get 2 long ones out of the end piece? If I did, like, say 4, 1 and 1, can I get a long one out of the end, and 1 and 1 and a long one? That gives me 2 long ones. I wonder if I can do that. Let's see. So here's my mark for that other one, and I need 17 1/2 on here. Oh, I can. So I can get, out of this sheet right here, I can get all 4 of my short bases and 2 of the long ones, which just leaves me 2 long ones to do, which means I can cut 1 strip on another piece of plywood and cut the long bases. My whole process here is to eliminate scrap wood. I want to be I don't know what the word is. I want to utilize my wood to its fullest extent. I want to minimize my scrap, minimize my waste. You know, that maximizes the money that I'm going to be making here and minimizes my profit loss. So I think that's what I'm going to do on these. That works out really well. Width-wise, they're all the same. They're all that 7 and whatever. 7 1/4. I think 7 1/4 was the widest I said. And I may just make these 7 1/4 and then cut them down, like shave off a little bit to fit. Because 7 1/4 is just easier to get a nice standard run. So what I need to do is clean up my stuff here. I'm going to move my bases and stuff out of the way and get myself some room here to make some cuts. And I need to clear the space on my table here because it's going to run along here. So at 7 1/4, I'm going to be pushing my stuff here. Or, let me think, because I've got a lot of stuff on my workbench. It is no lie, my workbench has a lot of stuff on it. So I'm trying to minimize the amount of stuff I have to move around on the workbench to make room. But, it is what it is. If I need to move stuff, I need to move stuff. And if I can just move as little stuff as possible, that would be awesome. So I think I can do this. Just do it a little different way here. I think we got this. All right. I'm going to move my computer and my iPad out of the way. Let me lower this back down so that the wood flows across. My phone. Maybe I should check my phone. Anything going on here? No. Nothing going on here. Okay. All right. What I want to do is measure 7 1/4, but instead of measuring 7 1/4 here at my fence, I got to clean off this. I got a lot of sawdust over here. It's going to screw me up. But instead of cleaning 7 1/4, instead of measuring 7 1/4 to the edge of the blade, I'm going to measure 7 1/4 from the end of this piece of wood and then make that my cut mark. And that way I can slide this fence over and then still have room for this wood to travel out here. Let me clean this up here real quick. All right, I needed the sawdust cleaned out from the edge of that fence because that would block everything. And now I can get and I've got the dust collection hooked up. I'm going to measure this so I can actually put it on the table here and find that edge. Where's my tape here? It's 7 1/4. I'm going to measure my 7 1/4 here. Like I said, this is a rough cut. I'm going to get these cut down to their exact size they need. Once I'm done making the rough cut, need a razor blade up here. Let me give you a better view here. There you go. A little bit better view. So what I'm doing is just looking at my stuff here. I'm going to make a cut that is, this will be my finished piece of wood width, more or less. Rough cut. Spider webs. But that looks pretty good. Then I can come back and make another one that's 7 1/4 out of this one. And I'll have two, but that means I don't have to clear all my table off here, I don't think. Well, I might. Hang on. Let's see. Let's see how much I'm gonna hit that. All right. I need to move a couple more things. Just the way it's got to be. Not a lot, but my definitely need to move my switcher here. I'm just going to put it down below for the moment because it will be in the way. I think that's enough space for right now. But let's go ahead and pull this out this way past the saw blade and see if we'll clear. Yep. Okay. We're going to call that good enough because that clears the blade. Now we can make a cut. I'll bring this back here. Need to get the power cord from my router and bring it over to the table saw. Oh my goodness. Alrighty. What do I have in my, oh, I put my phone in there. Put the phone down here. There we go. All right, let's make a cut. I'm going to take my gripper and I'm just going to lower this leg, raise the leg, so that I have a nice flat surface here just to push this through. Keep my fingers safe. And let's go ahead and cut some wood. Now I'm going to move this fence over to 7 1/4 to clean up that other wider piece. Get it to about the exact same thing. Like I said, it's not exactly the width that I need, but that's okay for the moment. So let me set this aside. All right. So I've got one skinny piece of scrap here, right? It's about, I don't know, 1 1/4 inches. Let's look and see. Almost 1.5 inches wide. I'll probably never do anything with that except throw it in my burn barrel, but is what it is. Now I can also grab another piece of ply over here and cut that one additional piece that I need. This is not as pretty, but I think it'll be okay. I might use this for the walnut, a couple of the walnut bases. It's got a darker wood grain on it, so it's kind of interesting. It's not not nearly as attractive as the other, but and then the only thing I don't like, the thing that kills me on it, is if you look right here, it's got this strip right here. It's like, oh, well, here's an extra piece just to make it wider. It's like, no. So I'm not going to use this side. I will use this side over here. And I'm just going to run it through here and cut a strip off of this. And see if I can do that this way. Oh, my fan's going to be in the way. Of course it is. I got to put my fan on the ground. Fan's kind of twofold. It keeps the air moving out of the garage as I was spraying lacquer, but also it just kind of helped to keep air circulating in here because it's not as hot as it's been lately, but it's like 80 degrees in here. It's pretty warm. All right, let's make another cut here. Okay, and this I'll set aside and use this for something else later. It's not, like I said, not the prettiest of wood, but it will do. I prefer the birch. I'm not sure where I got that. Yeah, it may have been that they just had no birch at the time, and I was like, well, I got to get something done. But now I've got 3 of these things. And this side's not bad. I mean, this is nice and pretty right here. And it's wood grain and whatever. I hate the stickers they use. The adhesive tends to leave residue on these damn things, and they don't come off easily. I usually have to end up using mineral spirits to get these off, and a scraper or something. But anyway, all right, so now we need to figure out, well, okay, we've got these. I need bases to go with them, or bases. I need bases to go with these individual pieces and have pieces that fit them. These are too wide to go in here. I'll show you. So that is just like, oh, maybe not even 1/8 of an inch too wide for this. Now, the other thing I can do is check to say, okay, well, if I'm going to do 2 wide ones, let's take these 2 right here, right? And I want to see if these are the same measurement across, because if I can cut this down to the same width for both of these at the same time, this one's 7 1/8, 7 1/8, a little less than 7 1/8 actually when you get down here to the edge. So, and in this one, I have the feeling is wider than that. Well, it's close to 7 1/8. Let me check the other one. I've got one more walnut one here that, let's see what this one measures. Because remember, I'm going to get 2 long ones out of this one piece right here. So this one is right at 7 1/8. Okay, I'm going to go just a hair under 7 1/8, and that'll get me 2 of these for width. And then lengthwise, I'll cut those individually over at the miter saw. So let's go ahead and make this 7 1/8. So we're really only going to be knocking 1/8 of an inch off of these things. So not much material coming off. Right there. Okay. Make a cut. You can see we didn't lose much here. That's super thin piece, and that can actually just go in the garbage can like that. And if I bring these bases over, I can't insert these into the bases, but I can check the width. And I just do that by just seeing if it'll fit nicely inside here, and it does. Now this one was a little bit wider. So I'm going to go with these other 2, because it was a little bit wider on those, but this one I think will be a little bit more of a, yeah, see, this is a much better fit. I don't have, remember, I don't want to have a lot of gap in between. And this is a nice fit for this one. And I believe it was this one. It should be a nice fit for this one as well. And it is. So I get good measurements. You know, I like to check both ends. But that's really good. So the next thing I need to do is cut the length of these so that I can have them matching up to their respective bases. But for right now, I'm going to leave these over here just to get them out of the way, because I know, right, that those go together. So we're going to leave those together. And then let's look at some of these other ones that I was going to cut. So this one, let's see what you are. Okay, that one is just a hair over 7 1/8. Yeah. And then let's check some of the smaller ones and see if we can match some of these sizes up here. Yeah, I think this will work. Because remember, I need 2 short ones and a long one. Okay, so these three are all pretty equal. I'm going to set them over here so when I cut this, it'll match up to there. I'm going to turn this fan towards me a little bit. I got another fan over here. Okay, so I need to go up to about 1/8 of an inch there. There we go. And we're just going to do the same thing. We're just going to shave a little bit. Now, you know, I'm going to hit my bases over here. Let me move some stuff. Got to move these out of the way just slightly, or they will get knocked over. There we go. Last thing we want is for these things to get knocked over. There we go. Okay. All right, locked in. Let's cut this one. The same thing, just a super thin bit of trimming off of this. And grab one of these just to check fit. It should be good. Yep, more than ample. That's perfect. Okay, so this one goes with these three, and then I'll cut them to length. So last thing we need to do is figure out for these what size I'm looking at to get these cut down. So this one is just a hair. Oh, that's a 1/4 there in the middle. I don't care about the middle. I care about the ends, really. So this is like almost 3/16. Let's try these other two, see what they look like. Yeah, I might have to, that's almost 3/16 as well. Now this one's a little smaller. Okay. Well, I'm going to cut to the larger size, which is about 3/16. And then from there, I can trim that smaller one once I get them cut down. But that 3/16, just right there. Okay. That should satisfy two of them. One of them is going to need to cut down just a little bit more than that, but that's okay. Alrighty. I'm going to move over to the chop saw, otherwise known as the compound miter saw. And we're going to start cutting these down for their particular length. It's just 12:30. We got plenty of time, sort of. But when we start getting these down to length, that's kind of where we'll leave it. But I just want to get all the cutting done. And then we'll start, you know, on the next one, we'll go ahead and fit these in and glue them and such. Or I might show you what I'm going to do. And then I'll do them off camera so you don't have to watch me do all of them. So I'm going to take this first batch that we did, which was, let me move the vacuum hose because we're going to need that over here as well. Even though it doesn't work so great on the compound miter saw is just a dusty beast. It really is. But you know, every little bit helps, I guess. So I'm going to put the hose on the back here. There we go. Actually, I'm going to dust off the compound miter saw first because it is filthy. I did not clean it last time I used it. Let's go back to, oh, I don't have a, let me switch cameras here for you and give you something to look at. I'll put my camera switcher back up, and we're going to go here, and let me just change the view here so you can see where we're going to be. We're going to be over there on the miter saw. Really not so much garage door. There we go. Okay, so that's where we're going to be working, and I'm going to clean up some of this dust over here first because it's nasty. Alrighty, so I need to make some room for stuff on here, and then grab this piece right here, but we need to measure how long we need to be. So we're going to measure this one first. Let me grab my ruler and my pencil, and let me grab a square off the back wall here, because we're going to draw a line to cut these on. All right, so the first one here, we'll go with this one. So our line here is going to be drawn at 1, 2, 3, 17, just about 17 3/8, maybe just a hair over that. So let me measure 17 3/8, just maybe a hair over that, right there. And then let's get the ruler on here and draw that line. Okay, I've got a nice cut line here on the board, right here. So I'm going to stick this over there, and then we will chop this up. Whew, warm in here. It's getting warm in here. All right. Yeah, so it cuts right on that line. I want that edge of the blade to be right on top of that pencil mark. Okay, let's check and see how we did here. All right. So I'm going to bring this in and set it into, it should set into the groove here. It's just a little bit too long, just a tiny bit long. See, it's fine on this edge, but just a little, let me flip it around. That fits. That fits. Okay, so this fits in here. So we're going to say this one's good. And I'm going to just set that with it. And then we need to measure this one. And then we will do the same thing. Cut that one to length. So this one is, whoa, this one's longer. This one is, check it out here. This one's 1, 2, 3, just a little over 3/8. So I need to bring that back over here. I'm going to measure this out to just a little over 3/8. 17 3/8. Draw that line. lost my desktop setting. What the heck? I didn't want to do that. Okay, I've got my line there. And I think we're all good. I'm not sure what went on with my little switcher here. Restart that. There we go. Okay, so, and make sure I cut the right side of the board here. So 17 3/8. Let's cut this one. I can always, I'd rather cut it a little bit long. I can always shave a little off. You can't, once you're made the cut, too short is not going to work. Alrighty, hang on a second. Let me grab my little sanding thing here just to knock the fuzz off of this. And then we're going to check this one right here. I'm going to check this edge and this edge. And we're good. So it fits in this way and then on this end. And all I can do is check it from end to end, and then I'll check this side like this and this side like this. Right now, it will not fit because it has square corners. So these square corners are going to come off, and then we will be able to finish this off. But it won't fit with square corners. We're going to round those corners off, and then that will make life much, much better. Okay. So I'm going to save this one for last because special case. So let's go back to this one. These were all cut and they were all the same. Let's cut the long one here. Let's figure out what this long one was. All right. See what we need for this one. So it's like 7/16 on here. No. Well, yeah, 7/16 looks like the magic number. Well, that's a little under. Arr. Okay. They can't be just like perfectly square, can they? Because that would be too easy. Too easy. All right, well, I know that they're at least 3/8 and then not quite there. So we're going to make it right there. Line. And then go, line there. Let's go cut this off. All right. Now, these, like I said, I'm going to get 3 out of this length. Okay, that works. That works well. And then width-wise, we're good. And we're good. Okay. The big thing is keeping these things together because they're kind of like custom cut for these particular bases. So, all right, I need these small ones now. Let's measure these. Back over here. 12. Just under 12 3/4. And yep. Okay, let me go grab the piece of wood here. Mark this out. Anytime I can utilize almost all of my material, that's a good day. Makes me happy. All right. Oh, it's getting warm in the garage, though, I'll tell you that. That's another reason why I really love that saw, because it just makes doing things like this where it's wider than 6 inches. Before I would have had to do those either with my cross-cut sled on the table saw or, you know, with some sort of like a hand saw or something, which nobody wants to do that. Now, is this just a little too? Let's try it this way. This might be just a hair too long. So I'm going to give this just a little bit of a trim job here. Just a tiny bit. Okay, I think that was enough to get it to, yep, just enough of a trim. So that's perfect. Okay. And this last one right here, we're coming up on the final 3. Okay, this one's good width-wise. We just need a length, and that is the length on this. Five eighths. Yeah, just a hair over 5/8, 12 5/8. So let's mark it up. Hang on, let me clean this edge. 5/8. I say a hair under 12 5/8 or a hair, yeah, just a hair over 12 5/8. So 5/8 plus a hair being like a 32nd, at least in my book. Again, just to make sure I got it right. And I did. All right, let's give it a cut. So this is just a little long, like just a little teeny bit. So I'm going to give this a shave. For shave, young man. I know I didn't turn the dust collection on. I'm paying for it now. Let's see if that was enough. And it looks to be like it was. All right. So I just have 3 more to do. You notice how, like, leftover wood from that one strip, I've got this. So that's why it's kind of nice to just plan things out, minimize that scrappy stuff. All right, I'm going to make the long cut for this one. Motorcycles running up my street. Let me see if this is wide enough. It is. So we'll start with this one. Look and see. Why the hell's angels are running up and down my street? Okay, they're gone. It's not a through street, so I don't usually get a lot of traffic up and down here. All righty. So for this one, looks like 3/8, 17 3/8 looks to be the magic number. All right. And let's go cut this. See if it fits. Almost done. What time is it? 12:44. Awesome. Doing well. Okay. I would like to get one of these just done and gluing it in just to show you. And then I'll do the rest of them this weekend. I don't want to bore you with it, but it's kind of cool to see the process. You get to see my magic nickel, what I call it. All right, this is good. So we've got one for this one. One of these was wider. Grab my board here. I'm going to have to trim this down widthwise, I think, for one of these. I think it was just a little wide, maybe. But this one's good, so let's do this one. Get a measure, get a cut. 12 and just hair over 5/8. Huh. Just actually just under 3/4. But let me make a cut here and find out here. Between 5/8 and 3/4. Oh, I'll just call it right there. Make the cut. Tell you, it is such a nice thing to have that gliding head on the reciprocating saw, or on the reciprocating, on the top saw there, because like I said, you can just do so many wide boards with that thing. It makes it so much easier. All right, let's see how we did on the width here. I think we did pretty good. Yep, we did. Last one here. Now this is the one I think was a little narrow for this piece of wood. We might have to trim this down just a hair. You know what? I'm going to say no. It fits. It's a tight fit, but it's not like OJ's glove tight. It's just, you know, oh, sorry, bad reference. Anyway, it's not a bad fit. Not too tight. Okay. All righty, let's measure this one out. Oh, air conditioning is going to be good. That is for sure. What did we do without AC? Right? And whatever did we do? course, now it's hotter now than it used to be too. I'm not going to get into a whole global warming thing, but honestly, anybody can go check the Farmer's Almanac temperature ratings and see that it's warmer now than it used to be, like when my dad was a kid. So, and he had no AC when he was a kid. That's why I say that. That was, 70 odd years ago. Okay. Lord knows my kids are going to need air conditioning because it ain't getting any cooler out here. Is that too long? That might be a little too long there. Oh. All right, I got to shorten this one down just a tiny bit. I went just a hair long on it, but that's okay. That's easily fixed. Like I said, rather too long than too short. Okay. I put a magnet on this drawer. For whatever reason, that one doesn't want to stay shut. Really need to put some sort of like a magnet drawer closer, holder, cabinet hold down thing on that drawer over there. All right, let's check this one. All right, now we're cooking. Now we're cooking. Okay. I'm going to do one of these easy ones. And I say easy because it's smaller and not as difficult to do. But we're going to... Oh, let me take my ears off for a second. Blow some dust around. Let's see. Let's go to this camera right here real quick. So what I've got is a base with a rabbet cut in there. I've got my bottom cut for it. It will not fit because corners of the rabbet cut are round, or rounded. They've got a radius to them. My little bottom piece right here has square corners. I can do one of two things. Like I said, I could try to square these out with a chisel. That's a lot of work and kind of messy and not always turning out right. And you can split your wood and do crazy things. Or I can do what I call the easy thing and just round the corners of my base, my bottom. And to do that, I use what I like to call my lucky nickel, which just sits up here on top of my table saw fence. So I've got a nickel, just a nice standard US Thomas Jefferson nickel. And if you look, the nickel has about the same radius. I don't know if you can see that or not, but the radius of the nickel is just about the exact same as the radius of that rabbet cut. And so all I need to do is take this nickel, put it in the corner, and I'm just going to draw lines around it, which will basically tell me what to shave off of here to make this fit into the base. So I just do this on all four corners. Really easy. Just the big thing is you want to make sure that you're kind of hitting, you don't want to be sticking, you want to be too high up on the corner on the side or down. You want it to be just inside of that corner so that you get a nice radius drawn on there. About pencil width to the edge, so it looks very much like that, right? And I'm going to do that on all four. Get a little bit more pencil lead here, makes it a little easier. And once I have all four done, I can go and take these. Now there's a couple ways I could do this. I could go to the bandsaw and just kind of shave those off on the bandsaw really quick. But that can be a little choppy and not as smooth. So what I really like to do is use my, I don't need a spam phone call, but thank you. Thank you. Like to use my 12-inch circular sander. It just does a nice, easy job of rounding the corners. I just kind of pivot the wood on the sanding disc, and away we go. So that is all 4 corners marked with the lucky nickel. I'm going to put him back up there for the moment. And then what I need to do is switch over my route or my planer into sanding mode. So I'm going to bring this camera around. Hang on a second, I'll show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to wide view here. Lock this down. Okay, let me switch cameras so you can see what I'm talking about here. All right, this is my router, or my router. This is my planer right here. And this is a flip-top cabinet. So when I need to use the planer, I flip it into this orientation, which allows me access to this. But in order to utilize or maximize the space that I have in my small little shop here, I have this on a flip top so that I can just loosen these little star wheels on the side here. Kind of pull them around, and then this whole thing flips upside down to reveal my circular sander. And I just put these little star knobs, lock them back into place. So this is a super handy thing to have if you've got a couple of tools that you want to have mounted on something. You don't want to have to always be picking them up because they're heavy. And I can tell you that my planer and this particular sander are pretty heavy. But because I have it on this table, it's on wheels. I can roll it around and have access to both of them, store them in one location, and there you go. Pretty nice little deal right there. All I need is some AC and my dust collector, and then we can round those corners, and I'll show you how this one particular thing works. Now, let me just I have to rearrange things a little bit here, so give me just a second, because there we go. Just get this a little closer. It kind of fits right in here. It actually does a really good job of dust collection on this thing. The AC plug is back here. All right. There we go. I'm going to turn this on. There we go. It's pretty quiet as things go, but when I turn on the dust collector, it's going to get a little bit noisy. So I'm going to put my ears on. And then all I'm going to do is take this piece of wood and pivot. So I'll come over here to explain. So this blade is spinning. It's like 150 grit. So it can handle this no problem. It'll shave these down really quickly. All I'm going to do is take this piece of wood, put this corner into it, and pivot it around like this. I'm just going to pivot it and get right down to my little mark line on there. So I'm going to sand right up to that line, and I'm going to do it on all 4 corners. Okay, so I've done a lot of these. I've done a lot of these in my day. And so I've gotten really good at doing that whole, around the radius thing. But I usually like to just bring a little piece of sandpaper over here and clean up the marks from the sander and just kind of make sure that radius looks good. I'm not perfect, but it is very quick. To me, this is much faster and easier than using the bandsaw because I think I have more control going around those corners and just going right up to that line. And it just gives me a nicer little radius. Next thing you need to do, take this, see if it looks better from here. Take this, we're gonna stick it right inside there. Boom, look at that. We now have a base bottom. Sits right in that groove. It looks really good on the inside, right? The radius from that nickel matches really well. I mean, look how good that is. Isn't that nice? So super time saver, really easy to do. Yeah, that's why I do it that way. All right, last thing I'm going to do, and this is what I will do with all of these, but off camera this weekend probably, so you don't have to watch. But I'm going to get 4 clamps. I'm going to get some clamping cauls. So a clamping caul is just a piece of wood, if you don't know this, that allows you to apply pressure across a broader area, and it allows you to apply even pressure across a wider area. So instead of using a lot of clamps along this long edge, I'll use something like this, positioned in there, put a clamp here, but that clamp spreads that pressure across this board and uniformly onto there. That's what a clamping caul does. I know, you probably knew that already. Let me find a couple more. There's just little pieces of scrap wood that I used to do this with. It's not anything super exciting. That's a good one. We'll use this one. So that's good. And then I need some for the end pieces here. Actually, I might use that as an end piece. Let me see if I've got any other scraps laying around here that I can do that with. I've moved my scrap pile around a little bit. So, oh, there's a good one right there. Here we go. Okay. Alrighty, so I'm gonna get rid of this one for a moment. I've got 2 longer boards, which are nice because that puts pressure across a larger surface right here. And then I've got a small one right here for this end. And I need a little small piece of wood to go in this end. So that's my 4 clamping cauls right there. Kind of give you a little bit better view of them like that. And one of the reasons I like using these particular clamps is that they have a flat head right here. So that goes down, and because it's flat, which not all clamps have that. I'll show you what I mean. Like this clamp right here is not, it's flat right here, but then it drops down. It's got a little spider on there, but it drops down right here. So when I'm trying to clamp on the edge of this surface right here, that could slip into there and the clamp would be sideways. So this flat edge on here is really, I find this to be really nice. These are not expensive. These are Bessie clamps, but they're really inexpensive 6-inch Bessie F-style clamps. So not super expensive. All right, so the last thing I will do to this, to get this base in here, is put some glue in. I'm gonna check the bottom of this just to make sure that it's clean, doesn't have a sticker on it, because sticker's a pain in the rear to take off once you have it glued in, like this one right here. See, there's a sticker. So I need to get that off before I do anything else with that one. But there's like, this has a little scratch. It's not a scratch, but a scrape or indentation right there and stuff. I don't want it on the inside. I'd rather have that be on the very bottom, because the last thing anybody's going to see is the very bottom of this. They're going to see the inside more than they'll see the bottom. So if there is an ugly side to it, I'd rather have the ugly side on the part that's actually going to be facing down. And then also just make sure that I have any fuzz cleaned off of the ends here so that they are as smooth as I can get them. Plywood has a tendency to be a little chippy sometimes, so you're not going to get them perfect. Then what I'll do is try to open this glue bottle one last time, maybe. There we go. And I'm just going to put a small bead of glue all the way around that rabbet. And doesn't take a lot. I mean, a really thin bead. Just a super thin bead, if I can get one to lay down. Because I don't want to get a lot of squeeze out coming out of this either. I just want that little thin bead to just be enough to secure this top. And it really will be, because this is like face grain to face grain kind of stuff, which is going to give you some really good adhesion. So just, if you can see, that's, oh, you can't see because I'm not showing you the right camera. And my camera went off. What the heck? Hello, Mr. Camera. Hello. Okay. My camera's like being weird. So I'm going to turn it off. And I'm going to turn it back on. And hopefully it comes back on. No, it's not going to come on. Anyway, okay, we'll come to this one. Hopefully you can see there's just a really thin bead of glue running right along the inside of this. And all I'm going to do is take this and place it down inside, press it in, and then start clamping these to the edge. It's a little cumbersome. It's not like clamping just perfectly flat boards, because this does have an edge underneath. So you're kind of getting like this edge right here. That's why I said I like that flat part right there. Do the same thing on this side. Try to get this part of it close to that edge as I can, so it's kind of over top of that glue joint area. And let's do this end. Wood cutting time. Wood cutting, it's almost the end of wood cutting time. Someone pop into Twitch said it's wood cutting time. I've been cutting wood. Where have you been? Man, I've been cutting wood all morning. Well, some wood, plywood. Been cutting plywood, making bottoms, routing edges, doing rabbet cuts. Now it's glue time. Look at that. So that is basically the bottom being glued in. And there's a little squeeze out in there, and I think I might have a straw. Oh, the webcam going black. Yeah, that's my GoPro. I'm not sure what the heck happened to my GoPro. It doesn't usually do that. And it may have gotten overheated. I mean, it shows it being on. If I switch, there it goes. Of course, now it wants to come on. So now you can see the GoPro. It may just be warm because it's plugged into the power all the time. But I am over here looking for a straw. A drinking straw. Tell you what, give me 1 second. I'm going to run into my kitchen and grab a drinking straw, because I'm going to show you a little trick. You can probably still hear me because I'm in my kitchen. I've got my wireless mic, and I'm in the kitchen grabbing a straw. And now my dogs are really excited because they think they're going outside. Sorry, pups, give me a minute. Okay, I'm back, and I have a drinking straw. Plastic drinking straw. This is the best tool for getting glue out of corners. When you've got squeeze out, which I'll
see if you can see it. So you see the squeeze out inside there in the corners. When you get squeeze out, what you do is you take the straw. These are a little small. I wish it was a little bit larger. But you take this and then you force it into the corner. And the corner of this actually turns into a little 90-degree corner as you squish it in there. And then you run it along the glue and it pulls all that glue out. So just kind of run it through there and it sucks all the glue out. It is really amazing. Let me get a paper towel to kind of squeeze the glue out into. But it's easier than using a towel or anything like that. I used to use like a wet paper towel to try to clean the glue out. And half the time it ends up spreading stuff around. And the worst thing you can do is get a thin film of glue around your wood. But this, I mean, it's just pulling all that glue into the tip and I just clean it out like that. But this is so super handy. If I can get it to go, sometimes it gets wedged under the corner there. But this saves you so much time in finishing your project because you don't have to sand extra to get any glue squeeze out of there. So let's see if I can get this last little bit out of the corner. The corner I don't really mind because there's going to be a piece of wood sitting in there. So the corner is going to have a piece of wood like this in there anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But the rest of it is now clean of glue squeeze out. And that means when I stain this and stuff, I'm not going to have these lighter spots in here that can't go. Let me get a little bit more right here. And that, I mean, that's, you saw it before, like there's no glue in there now. It's perfectly clean. So a little plastic straw, I'm telling you what, man, it is going to save your bacon when it comes time to getting rid of squeeze out in corners. Just a little drinking straw. And then the nice thing is, even if you've used this part of it, you just cut this little piece off and then just keep using it as it gets shorter. So, all right, so this will sit in clamps for a few hours. And then I'm going to do the rest of these this afternoon if it's not too hot. I mean, it's like 82 degrees in here right now. I don't know what that is Celsius. It's like 30 degrees Celsius or whatever. It's pretty warm. I might do it today. I might do it tomorrow, although I don't know that it's going to get any cooler tomorrow. Let's see what the weather bug has to say. 86 outside right now. So, hey, it's a nice chilly 82 in my shop. And then a little cooler tomorrow, actually. So I will probably try to get some of this done tomorrow. But it's the same process. All of these are done now. So I'm going to use the sander. I'm going to draw that radius with my lucky nickel. And then we will glue them in, get them into clamps, and then let them sit for a few hours. Once it's sat for a few hours, the glue's had time to cure. These bottoms will be super secure, and then that's that part of it. So, yeah. I mean, it's like, oh, good, you're almost done. No, not even close. There's so much more. I always fool myself into thinking, oh, once I get the bottoms in, I'll be done with these things. But it's actually a long process of little steps. And I try not to get ahead of myself. What would I do next after this? See, these are the easy ones because they don't have side compartments, so I don't have to make lids for them or anything. But what I do need to do for these is to make the corner pieces. I need to do the big roundovers on the side. This gets like a 1-inch roundover on the corners. So for these, they get a roundover and they get corner pieces, which like these little corner pieces, these little triangles. They get like these things, so I have to cut these. And then these are really pretty much done. Then it's just a bunch of finishing work on them. The larger ones, they have more work to do. So these, let me grab one of these. So these require a lot more work. So I'll probably work on these next. Once I have the bottoms in, then I can insert this centerpiece and slide it all the way down to the bottom that we've now glued in. Then I have to shave off what's left in terms of wood on top, because this is cut to the same depth as this, but when the bottom's inserted, I'm going to lose about 1/4 of an inch off the top of here. So I need to cut that off, and then I'll use my hand plane to get it nice and flat. And then we cut a rabbet in here to make another little lip, and then I have to make the lid to go fit inside there. And then I have to make the corners and get those glued. And so these take a lot more work. They're worth, they're worth it in the end because they look great, but they require a lot more work than just the regular standard base with no side compartment. It's amazing how much that little pocket on the side adds so many steps to the process. But anywho, all right. Let's see here. I think, what time is it? 1:15 Eastern Standard Time, or whatever you're looking at, Eastern Daylight Time. I don't know what the hell we were in. Anyway, 1:15. I think I'm going to call it for the day because it is stinking hot in here. And I'm going to go in and get some lunch and play my guitar for a little while and chill out. And then maybe come back this afternoon and finish spraying lacquer and cutting some corners. So thank you guys for stopping in. I am happy to stream. I'll be back here doing it again on Monday. This was stream number 50. So big stream day for me. But anyway, have a great weekend, guys. I appreciate y'all coming out, stopping in, saying hi. As usual, socials are listed down below. If you want to go back and watch past episodes because you're a masochist and love doing all that kind of stuff to yourself, I don't know why. All of them are on YouTube. I have a playlist. So Jeff Ravel on the YouTube. They're all in a playlist called live streams. So you can go back and watch all of them if you want to. I don't know why you would, but they're there. So anyway, have a great weekend, guys. Take care of yourselves. Hope you stop in next week. Look forward to it. Take care. See ya.